Hi everyone, this is Rattlesnake Movie Channel. I hope each one of them will bring you happiness. He poured boiling water on his boss's leg to test whether his leg is really insensitive. In order to see the beauty, feed the rice to the boss's eyes. What's worse, he even made fun of the boss's beard. First, he gave him a bandit style, then a noble style. Finally, the Nazi style. However, such an unreliable caregiver. The boss likes it very much. He even considers this caregiver as his confidant. His name is Philip. He is a paraplegic billionaire. Due to a parachuting accident, he can only move his head. At this moment, he is interviewing one professional and highly educated caregiver after another. Among the rows of suit-clad applicants, dressing casually, Driss. It looks so out of place, but that's okay. He wasn't here to get the job anyway, because all he had to do was get enough signatures to get rejected by the three bosses. He could collect unemployment benefits from the government. You don't have to work to get the money. That's a great thing. So the whole interview with Driss seemed very casual. The high-paying nursing job didn't appeal to him like the pretty female assistant. And as he said that, he even gave the female assistant a wink. Philip smiled. It was this straightforwardness and lack of pretense. It made him feel at ease. He wanted this feeling of equal treatment without sympathy. So he decided to give the young man a half-month trial period. He told Driss to think about it overnight. He told him to come in tomorrow at 9 a.m. Either work or get his report and leave. After leaving the mansion, Driss looked glum. When he got home, his mother, who had been working hard all day, came home just in time. Driss hurriedly took out a funny egg. He wanted to give his mother a surprise, but his mother said,
6 mois qu'on ne t'a pas vu, et tu te pointes comme une fleur en m'offrant un Kinder. Tu penses que c'est avec tes magouilles que j'ai payé le loyer?
But what she definitely didn't know was, this egg was stolen by Driss from Philip's mansion, so it was worth a lot of money. It's enough to buy a house, not to mention pay the rent. But this thing the lower class people do not know, and that includes Driss. His mother called him a piece of mud that couldn't be painted on the wall. She told him to get out. So Driss spent the night on the street with a group of friends. Wait until 9 a.m. the next morning. He showed up at Philip's house on time. The butler was showing him around the mansion, and told him that the previous caregivers had generally given up after a week. Obviously, she was suggesting that Driss was not up to it. Then she went on to show him the other rooms. It's very luxurious and opulent. Even the caregiver's room has a separate luxury bathroom. The bathroom was bigger than his whole house. As you can imagine, it made him very excited. Opened the door to Philip's room. The family doctor was giving him a full examination. When he was ready to leave with the signed report, Philip took the opportunity to say,
J'aurais tellement que je suis prêt à vous prendre à l'essai pendant un mois. Pareil que vous tiendrez pas 2 semaines.
This was the same trick that made Driss so unconvinced. Only what he doesn't want to do. There's never anything he can't do. And that's how Driss got his first job in almost 5 years. Apparently, he's not a reliable caregiver. Falling asleep during induction training. He was also careless when carrying his boss to the wheelchair. He put the boss in the chair and left him alone. Almost killed the boss. He also always complained that the shampoo at the boss's home did not lather up, but it was only later that he discovered that he had poured the foot wash on the boss's head, and the shampoo used on the feet. This is really incredible. For these little problems of Driss, the beautiful secretary finally could not hold back. She advised Philip to change the caregiver is better. But it's true. How can a person who can't even care for himself take care of others? His friends and relatives had checked him out. They found out he was a gangster with a criminal record who spent his time on the streets. He was just released after spending 6 months in jail for robbing a jewelry store. Such a person is a hidden danger to staying around. Friends also advised Philip to dismiss Driss, and said that people like him have no compassion at all. Philip quickly interrupted him. I want someone who has no compassion. He often forgets that I'm paralyzed. I pay him because he's not like everyone else. His approach doesn't remind me that I'm a paralyzed person, because Philip was a man who had done great things, as disabled as he is. But the last thing he needs is to be treated like a patient. And this big boy in front of him did not look at him with colored glasses. For example, when he was out and about. Compared with the nanny car for the disabled, Driss prefers to take Philip for a drive in the sports car next to him. In the face of the roar of the car, the two laughed at each other. Driss has never driven a luxury car. He smiled happily. Philip is the laughter of the feeling of reunion after a long absence. In the face of the chaotic parking behavior that the boss hates, Driss would choose to just get out of the car. In his own violent way, he squeezes the man's face against the no parking sign to warn him.
C'est la bonne méthode, ça.
Voilà, maintenant, t'imprimes, et tu dégages. Allez.
Then they drove all the way to the exhibition. Philip bought an art painting without a word. This is very confusing to Driss. Isn't it just a canvas for nosebleeds? And yet these so-called high-class people call it a work of art. He can draw one himself better than this. What's even more ironic is that the painting was eventually bought by Philip's friend at a high price. But Driss, who usually seemed unreliable, but in the critical moment is more reliable than anyone else. On this night, due to drug-induced side effects, Philip was very uncomfortable. He was having trouble breathing and gasping for breath. He was in a very bad state. At that moment, Driss carefully brought a wet towel and put it on his forehead, calling his name softly. Slowly, Philip fell asleep. After falling asleep, he still did not choose to leave. Instead, he stayed on the sidelines for several hours, until Philip woke up in pain again. By this time, he was having trouble breathing. Driss rushed to put him in his wheelchair. He pushed him to the river for air. Philippe hadn't seen Paris at 4 a.m. since he was paralyzed. When Philippe was slowly getting better, they went to a cafe. They talked for a long time. Philippe laughed a lot, talking about what happens between good friends and good brothers. They talked until after midnight. Philip realized that, after today, Driss's probationary period would be over. Thinking about his performance during this time, finally, Philip told him, "You're officially hired." This is technically Driss's first official job, so there was a little bit of joy inside. In the days that followed, Driss became more and more dedicated to her work. He became more and more comfortable as a caregiver. Gradually, he gained the approval of Philip's family. As long as Driss was around, Philip could not stop smiling every day. But Philip would never have dreamed this seemingly unreliable caregiver would change the rest of his life forever. This caregiver was too cool. He took his paralyzed boss for an ear massage. While the owner was enjoying himself, he would thoughtfully hand him a cigarette. While running, he thought his boss' wheelchair was too slow and secretly added an engine to it, so that when they go for a walk, can fly freely like the wind. The relationship with Philip is getting better and better. They were like the first lovers. Philip took him shopping for suits. He took Philip to a snowball fight. Obviously, Philip was the one who was beaten, but they still had a good time. And then, by chance, Driss found out that Philip had a pen pal who had been writing letters for 6 months, and they had never even met during that time. Driss thought this was unbelievable. He advised him not to write any more letters. It was a long time ago. Isn't it nice to call and ask to meet? But Philip was afraid that he would be disliked as a disabled person. After hearing this, Driss immediately grabbed the envelope, picked up the phone and called the other party directly. All the letters were bullshit. It's not as direct as a phone call. Although Philip said no, but the heart is still eager.
Allô?
Oui, Léonore, c'est Philippe.
But after facing his pen pal's request to exchange photos, Philip again fell into low self-esteem. He wanted to send him a photo of himself before he was paralyzed, but Driss said, "Be honest with each other." Let him send a picture of himself in a wheelchair, although Philip agreed on the surface. But in the end, he asked his secretary to change the photo. Slowly, under Driss's careful care, he felt he could live like a normal person again. On the day of Philip's birthday, Driss thought the band's performance was too dull and boring, so he turned on his cell phone and started playing pop music. Then he danced to the music and danced happily, successfully turned the boss's birthday party into a personal dance show. Even the servants next to him were infected by his joyful dance moves. The scene was really exciting. On this day, the photo of his pen pal also came in the mail. It was obvious that she was a typical beauty. She also offered to meet Philip. Philip was thrilled. He had been choosing his dress for days, but just as the appointment was approaching, Philip backed out. He still wasn't confident enough. He was afraid he would disappoint his pen pal. Just as his secretary was pushing him out the door, Philip passed by with his pen pal. Then, with a combination of low self-esteem and loss, Philippe chartered a plane. He and Driss went to the place where he had been involved in an accident. The feeling of weightlessness that only gliding can bring, to relieve the inferiority complex and worry. But the arrival of a man shattered all that. Back home, Driss's brother came to see him. He said there was an accident at home. Philip was with him 24 hours a day, so Driss had no time for the family. He took good care of the rich man's home, but his own home was in disarray. Watching Driss outside arguing with his mother on the phone, he decided to let Driss go, even though he didn't want to, because he had his own family to take care of. There's no such thing as a banquet that doesn't end. When Driss left, the servants gave him a goodbye. When he first arrived, everyone despised him. Now everyone misses him. When he returned, he volunteered to help his mother with the household chores. He did not choose to continue to receive unemployment benefits. Instead, he used the knowledge of art he had learned around the rich to find a new job close to home. Things were not so good for Philip. He hated the new caregivers in their white coats and their cautiousness. He also hated the way they told him that smoking was bad. This thing is bad for you. That thing is bad for you. He was already in a wheelchair. How much worse could it be? Philip would rather be left alone at night than have a caregiver take care of him. The housekeeper had to call Driss. When Driss came back, he saw an old man with a full beard in a wheelchair. He smiled and asked what had happened. Then, without saying a word, he took him for a drive. They went through the endless fields to the sea. When Philip's heart calmed down, Driss cut his long hair and shaved off his beard. After cleaning up, he took him to a restaurant by the sea, settled Philip and told him,
C'est juste... je crois que vous avez un petit rendez-vous là.
and returned the eggs stolen from Philip's house to him, then turned around and left. After a while, an elegant woman came slowly. It was Philip's pen pal. The date he avoided in the first place, Driss got it back for him. This is the greatest joy that Driss can give to Philip. The older boy knew he couldn't take care of Philip forever. Only then could he leave with peace of mind. This is a true story. Philippe is a real person. He was the group vice president of Louis Vuitton Mode Hennessy. Until now, these two archetypal characters of completely different classes remain close to each other in reality. In the midst of Philippe's already miserable life, Driss is like a powerful light, tore a hole in his pain, and then shone it again. I think the greatest respect for people with disabilities is to treat them as if they were normal people. Sometimes too much sympathy for others. Instead, they will put themselves in a superior position to hurt others again, only by looking at others as equals and independent. Only then can we truly express our goodwill. Well, remember to subscribe to me, and we'll see you next time.